and subscribe to the channel. ये चैनल अगर चलेगा तो आपके सपोर्ट से ही चलेगा. Also, please do not forget to press the bell icon button. You will get all the latest updates from our channel Purva Paksha. So let's welcome Colonel Ishwar Singh once again back to our channel. It is always pleasure to interact with sir and gain a lot of knowledge. Just for the new subscribers, I'd like to introduce sir once again in short. Sir have been working in Indian Army for 15 years, and last past 15 years he has been working in an international level with different companies altogether. So it's always pleasure to welcome back, sir, to the Puro Paksha channel. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you so much. Namaskar to you and namaskar to all your darshak.
Yes, sir. Today, moving to our list of questions that we had to cover last time in the part two session. But I would like to, before that, ask you, sir, what's actually happening in Bangladesh? A Hindu youth was killed brutally in Bangladesh by the barbarics. Two, three girls were abducted. People are getting looted, and Hindu genocide is still continuing in Bangladesh. So, what's actually wrong with Bangladesh at the current moment?
In fact, it's an interesting question as to what is wrong with Bangladesh at the moment. In fact, a counter question is much better. What is right with Bangladesh at the moment? There is nothing right with Bangladesh at the moment. You know, and when there is nothing right, then you cannot expect the right, you know, the wrong things not to happen there. The Bangladesh society is radicalized to the extent that they are erasing their own, father of the nation's legacy, Mujibur Rahman. They are erasing their own museum. They are erasing their own parliament. So all it means and tantamounts to it is that a stage managed, you know, overthrow of a democratically elected government was achieved for the geopolitical gains, and a so-called Nobel laureate, radicalized puppet was installed. So when you asked for it by putting a radicalized puppet in the chair, by overthrowing a legitimately elected government, this was very much on the expected lines. Only thing we didn't know is when would this happen. And this is also happening not without a reason. There's a reason for that. They said that they would be able to do elections in 6 months. They didn't do it in 8 months. They didn't do it in 12 months. And now, almost from last August to this August, is already 12 months. And now, then it's happening in Feb, almost about 18 months post, 18, 19 months post throwing out of their own elected government. So now, when they have election February, it is hardly, a month and a half or 2 months away from now. And the whole purpose of putting a radical in that chair or that position as chief executive advisor, they call it. Whom is he advising? We don't know. But he's the chief executive advisor to whom? And that advisor has managed to do that the entire society is up in arms. Their newspapers are being burnt. Their newspaper houses are being burnt. Hindus' temples are being broken. People are being burnt alive on the live camera. And their flyovers are being pulled down. There is nothing in Bangladesh. There is no law and order in Bangladesh. That's why the factories are shutting down. The labor costs are going up. FDI is moving out. The investment money is not going to come through to them. And I see Bangladesh to be the next Syria or Afghanistan or South Asia. Now, the whole purpose of, at this point of time, to raise passion against anti-Islam is just to raise that passion. They would do something of this kind, what you are aware about, you know. And this probably is in the expectation and hope that would unite people with anti-India, kind of sentiments, and probably bring them back into the power. That's the whole game. But if you look at the game within the games, yesterday the the so-called youth leader Osman Hadi, that boy, if I were to put it, his brother has come back on national media there and has said that Yunus, you have killed my brother to raise a rhetoric and gain votes because Yunus, Muhammad Yunus, true to his name, is all doing is trying to get back to the power through Jamaat politics. And Jamaat is, of course, a radicalized politics. Jamaat is worse than Afghanistan Taliban. So he first released all the Jamaat terrorists. Then he created these student leaders, exit from his government. They made a separate party, NCP. So it suited them to kill that guy, and that would raise anti-India passion. And instead of those, they will become leaderless, NCP, and these guys will be able to raise anti-India, kind of sentiments. For what reason? India has no role into killing of that guy. India is not interested in killing such dirty guys. Okay, India has no, those terrorists are, one of them is caught there. They have not crossed into India. India has nothing to do with it. So it is the true nature of radical society, and that's what they are raising, and that's what they're doing. But they would, at the end of the day, burn themselves down. That's the true nature of radicalization. That's
Okay,
all
sir.
I can say about Bangla.
Okay, sir. Uh, and what measurements do you think India should take on its side?
See, India has very limited, kind of role to play when there is a, society which burns itself down. You know, at the end of the day, that Hindu killing is very sad, very bad, but it speaks bad of them. They are their nationals. They have chosen to be there in 1971 war, despite being, majority of the Muslims, and they also got freedom along with them. They're part of that society. They're part of that nation. They're part of that country. They bear they carry the flag of that country. So we don't have any direct role to intervene anywhere, and it is no way justified as well. But what role we can play is, yes, if they are talking about, you know, they're talking about annexing Seven Sisters in the northeast. They're talking about annexing the chicken neck, and that's a direct threat to us. But to be very honest about it, that threat is only to raise passions and get votes in the election coming by. Any government comes in place would take 6 months to cool down the tempers and seek a rapprochement with the India, and will seek the help in terms of their imports without which they won't be able to survive back from India. So it's a phase where they have to make the maximum use of it in the next 2 months. You will see a lot of it coming in the next 2 months. After that, if it continues, then it worries India. And it worries India in terms of the design being, nefarious. And for that, I think India is already prepared for it. What action they want? The action is, if they do any action, there would be a massive reaction. That is the action of India. I won't really be able to, kind of speculate more than that. That India has all along the border has heightened the vigilance through the border security force. India is in a great hurry to wire up or even to fence the rest of the border which is not yet fenced. India is also kind of has put a new three cantonments to the so-called chicken neck. India has put a fourth one uh, on the Bangladesh border in Mizoram. So India is quietly preparing for any action from Bangladesh. India would probably be only in a position to react and not, you know, uh, preemptively act. There is no ground for India to probably preemptively act against Bangladesh because Bangladesh hasn't taken any kinetic or non-kinetic action against India per se. The diplomatic relations are in place. They have a problem within their society which is burning. And in that society, they're targeting minorities, which is the true nature of their society. You can only raise your voices against it.
Yes, sir. Also, sir, we are seeing a lot of things that are happening globally. For example, Australia incidents at the Bondi Beach where the firing took place and 15, 16 people were killed. In France, in Paris, they cancelled this year's Christmas celebration, New Year celebration. In Berlin, Germany, they have cancelled it. In a lot of European countries, they are cancelling New Year and Christmas plans. So, what is actually going across these global societies? What is wrong with these global societies?
See, this is what happens when you invite trouble home. So Europeans, Europe as a continent, and more so the Schengen countries, the 29 of them, have been, blowing their own trumpet of human rights champions, and in the name of human rights championship, under that disguise, all they wanted is cheap and illegal labor, so that their low-end jobs could be done by the illegals. And that's how they continued to, allow these illegals to live on. They never thought that these low end job workers would not be a low hanging fruit in long term. In the short term, it may have appeared to them a low hanging fruit. And now that they have penetrated deep inside the society and they've come significantly to 10%, 8%, 9%, 4% in various countries. And the moment it reaches to this level, you will have serious troubles in your society, be it Australia, be it any of the Schengen countries. What happened in Bondi Beach is a open, brash anti-Semitism. But if you carefully watch it, Australia has invited it on themselves, because if you look at it, Israel had warned it that if you go ahead and recognize Palestine on paper, whereas on ground nothing exists and there is a war there, you would be only accommodating and accepting anti-Semitism, and you would have to pay for it one day. Exactly the same thing happened, and that's how probably the Prime Minister of Israel, you know, kind of reminded it to the Prime Minister of Australia. So these societies are now paying in, you know, uh, in a short term they're paying through their nose, but in long term they would not be standing on their 2 feet to even pay for it. They will be completely encroached upon. It's a matter of another 2 decades and they will be subjugated. The slaves, they thought, in modern day would become their ruler and they will make these white people as slaves. There's no doubt about it. That's the way it looks to me.
Okay, sir. And similarly, what do you think is going to happen with this Russia-Ukraine thing? Because on one side, Trump is saying that the war has ended, Russia has won. He's also signing some peace deals and stuff. On the other end, when I see the European leagues or European champions, they are saying that we'll make some $90 billion and give it to Ukraine, and the war will still continue for next 2 years. President Chancellor of Germany has said that I'll fund them, and then we'll fight till the end in 2 years, and then uh, end the hegemony of Russia. So what's actually going on? Because it's not clear what they're up to.
See, as far as the Ukraine-Russia war is concerned, uh, there are many different angles and ways to look at it. It's a very quicksand, okay, where both sides have very badly stuck there. They can make any kind of posturing, but where the war stands today and the geopolitics around this war stands today is this, that US and Europe put together as North Atlantic Treaty Organization took the war to the borders of Russia. and they put their puppet the way they have done in Bangladesh we talked about. Similarly, they removed the chosen elected leader in 2013 or 14 if I'm not wrong, and they put a selected leader in place of that democratically elected leader as the president of Ukraine and imposed upon them. And this leader probably facilitated the NATO being on the border of Russia. If anybody comes knocking at your door, it's quite obvious that you would probably react to it. And that's what probably Russia has done to it. Because the Russia has felt the heat of NATO right on its border. Despite Russia has been demanding for it from very long that you cannot expand NATO right to my border. Okay? So Ukraine they played the same game and US probably was of the view that they would be able to wind up this game in 6 months to 1 year, and by putting $300 billion or so, they would be able to break Russia again. And if they can somehow manage to eliminate President Putin, then they would have a free run. And the whole aim was to completely break the China, Russia, North Korea, nexus. The aim was to put the communist bloc into pieces. And as per their game plan, if the Russia was to go down the drain, then the China would have been extremely vulnerable and would have been an economic catastrophe as well for China. But I guess whatever little you can make out of the last 3 years now, and it's going to be 4 years, fourth anniversary is pretty close by. What has gone terribly wrong for the calculus of US and the Western leaders who in cohorts decided this is that Russia has pulled this along for 4 years. Russia is not fighting Ukraine. That's for on the surface of it for the world to see it, listen to it, and consume it. Russia is literally fighting Ukraine plus 38 countries of NATO. Russia is not fighting one. And Russian economy is less than $2 trillion. But still they have to put up with almost about 350 to 400 billion dollars of worth expenses till now in the last 4 years. In net it is coming out to be more than 100 to 120 billion dollar a month per annum. So they thought through the extreme sanctions and forfeiting their foreign assets and cutting them off from the world system, SWIFT system, and also cutting them off from the world trade, they would be able to bring Russia down to its knees. And that would eventually lead to the weakening of China. So China was the ultimate aim. Russia was the path through which they wanted to walk up to that. But the Russia proved it to the other way around. Today, almost about 26 to 30% of the territory of Ukraine is already, completely, I would say, won by Russia and occupied by Russia. This is beside the Crimea. So now Russia is in a position to almost cut Ukraine from the Black Sea and make it as a landlocked country. Now what's happening is while this is fine, that Ukraine will have to pay and foot the bill for the plans of the NATO chief, the European countries and the US. But Ukraine is paying only in terms of human life, in terms of physical territory, in terms of mineral swindling by US, and in terms of the complete reputational loss. But also the bill is being foot by the US and NATO and Europeans. So US has already, kind of bankrolled it with almost $300 billion. And now US tells Europe, it's your war. Ukraine is from Europe. It's a European war with Russia, not of mine. Why should I bankroll it? So now you bankroll by increasing the defense budget to 5%. Most of the countries were below 1% in Europe. They were leading a very welfare state life without any defense expenses. But now the war is on their door. And how do they suddenly gear up and do a cold start to come up to 5% of the defense budget? And not only the budget, then the production of defense industry to be able to sustain a war with Russia, where Russia has been into it for 4 years now. So Russia has geared up, Russian markets have bounced back, Russia's production has bounced back, Russia has found trade partners, Russia has sustained through this extremely tough period. But Ukraine was never prepared for it. And the consequential, ill benefits of it is that the inflation has gone extremely high in Europe. The the welfare budgets have been cut down in Europe. There is a demand on them to increase their defense budget now. Their expenses on defense budget has gone high. There has been a security, mismatch on their plan and what is available to them. And then there are fractures available in NATO. The ice is cracking, and you may not see a NATO in a couple of years down the lane. You got it? And Europe, for the first time in 500 to 600 years, has come to realize or finding itself standing alone on thin ice. Europe has no locus standi in the world geopolitics today because Europe looks too confused, too weak, and too meek. So if it goes with US and toes the line, it becomes furthermore of the too weak, too meek, and standing on thinner line. And there would be fractures in the entire European Union. European Union, the Schengen zone, all of that. So now Europe is on a crossroad. Europe cannot have gas from the Russia, or even if it has at an exorbitant price. So the entire inflation is much higher than what the European governments can absorb, or the European societies or people could, kind of budget that into their daily budgeted life. Okay? So Europe has far more greater to lose in terms of losing their security, in terms of losing their sleep, in terms of losing their bankrolling this, Ukraine procrastinated war, in terms of losing face, in terms of losing their geopolitical standing. They have managed to successfully erode the world confidence in Europe of last 700 years. Today they look absolutely shallow and fleet-footed. That's what probably my take on the Russia-Ukraine war is. And as this war progresses, I believe there would be more and more voices of reconciliation from USA. But Russia has paid through its nose for 4 years, 4 long years, and lost their men in terms of lakhs, if not millions, and have been stubbornly being pushed to the wall. So when the push comes to the shove, to this extent, Russia has fought for 4 years and gone through untold miseries. But when the tables are turned, Russia may not be so easy cakewalk if there are such voices of reconciliation come from the USA. They would take their pound of flesh and only make it and rub it on the Europe and NATO and US, and only then they will probably give them an off ramp or a face saving. Otherwise, I don't think Russia would give them a free run and a free hand to conclude it in their favor or conclude it with neutrality. Russia would conclude it with a full land grab, a full non-NATO guarantee, a full no European forces ever in under the guise of any security guarantees in Ukraine, and Ukraine being vulnerable to Russia in future. So Russia probably would take a lots of far-fetched strategic benefits, and strategic goals to be achieved by them. Unless they achieve them, they probably won't be, they would come onto the negotiating table, discussion table, but all that is a way to prolong it. All the way, that's the way to dry the opposite side out and hang them in dry sun. that may not be directly intended to just close it out. But all these discussions would continue. But unless the Russian goals are met almost at about 100% point, this war won't conclude. If at all it is stretched by the Europeans, as they say they would bankroll it with $90 billion. Who would pay those $90 billion? Their poor people who have been suffering for the last 4 years would have to bankroll this. The governments have no money of their own. They have to take taxes and give it there. They have no more money. There are uprisings everywhere in all these countries for taxes and their pension funds being cut. So how is it possible they would bankroll? And even if they bankroll, they will be further deeper into the quicksand. And if that to happen, I think Europe would be probably heading far more speedier with the speed towards a catastrophe of its own created. Huh? Have you heard about Frankenstein monster? This is that, and it's a real one. The latest one, you could call it 02.02.03, whatever you wish to call it, but that is the way it is. I hope that probably brings some clarity and some kind of a directional clarity as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned. The Russia-Ukraine war has actually changed, or if not changed, at least triggered the geopolitical reset of the globe. The world moves from unipolar world to a multipolar world. And if I were to, kind of have a take on it, I would probably say the Russia-NATO war, which we all prefer to call as Russia-Ukraine war, is the trigger and is the bulwark for that to happen. So we all actually should be thanking Russia for paying through their nose to get the world to this stage. And I guess the US is really feeling the heat of it. And as far as the Europeans is concerned, they are only a side issue. They won't be in the decision making, kind of boat.
Great, sir. Absolutely wonderful answer, sir. Uh, Next point was that are we going to see global recession? Like, do you foresee global recession in future?
No, I don't see a global recession. There will be a global productivity downtrend. And when you say global productivity downtrend, when you mean what do you mean by that? You mean by that there will be a GDP growth, the world GDP growth, but it will be far more slower than what it has been in the recent past. If the global GDP was growing at about 2.5% to 3%, it may be slower than that. So that is a downtrend, and that probably would cause a problem of not much of growth in the world. And there are very few places left in the world where the investment money feels safe about itself. The investment money is a hot money. It will cross borders and go wherever there is a rule and law and order. There is a rule-based society, and there is a peace and tranquility, and there is a skill set available to produce for the world to consume. And I think one of the hot spots for that is India. And precisely that's how this kind of analysis is linked to your first question as to what is India's reaction to Bangladesh. US and a couple of other countries in its league want India to get involved with Bangladesh and be in a similar quagmire of what Russia and Ukraine has been. If you get into Bangladesh, you won't be fighting Bangladesh. You would be fighting the entire jihadi Islamist extremist ecosystem of the world, in which the World Human Rights Organization of UN is involved. Okay? You'll be fighting the Hamas elements. You would be fighting the US and Europeans, who would be happy to see you, getting entangled there, and then your production comes down and your society gets into a major problem and your country becomes into a major financial, kind of crisis. So probably if you can connect the dots, you would be able to see the larger picture. Bangladesh is nothing but a bait for India. Please take the bait and get stuck with it. India has to be very cautious about it. you know, without taking the bait, you know, India has to manage it.
One quick question on the same line. Do you also foresee any world war in future? Like we have seen two world wars, like World War One, World War Two, or maybe call it European tribal wars. Uh, will we foresee the World War Three in future?
See, if you carefully watch it, I know we are taught what they wanted us to be taught. If you look at World War One, World War Two, they were not world wars. They called them world wars, so we also call them world war. Those wars were between the monarchies of the two countries within the same continent, which spread to some other countries within the same continent. And they believed that only Europe continent was the continent worth it about human beings, and rest all are, too below subhumans to be considered. So where is India was involved in that world war? That means were we voluntarily part of that? No. Was Africa involved in that? No. There were colonies of Europe, and they enlisted the soldiers of their colonies and forced them to fight for it. But none of them fought for their own countries. So I don't really believe first in place that it was World War One and it was World War Two. No. The World War One was between Germany and UK. It was between the then Germany and Winston Churchill. The World War II was between the same Adolf Hitler and the UK, and the couple of them, as and when the world war, that so-called European war progressed, they aligned between the two factions of it, and they destroyed themselves to each other, thereby giving birth to a British colony called United States of America, and that too was also with the help of the French. Otherwise, the USA had no guts to take their liberation from the UK. Okay, it was the French naval which blocked the UK naval to exit from that war, and that's how the US could defeat the UK, United Kingdom, and the Queen. So I believe that war gave birth to a new, world order, and that's how the U.S. became a far-flung area, far more productive, and these economies were destroyed by each other. So that's why many empires where the sun never set, UK, French, German, Austria-Hungarian, Spain, Spanish Empire, all of them came down crumbling. You know, none of them could survive those two big economic zoll to them through those wars. Okay, but if you carefully look at it, it's actually a limited war within the Europe. Okay, and there were only powers within the Europe. There were none who were any sizable power. There was humanity outside, but there was no power. There were no power centers. So I believe we are yet to see a world war. Okay, yes, there were sort of wars in terms where the globe was impacted, but they were not global wars. Okay. Now coming to a world war, the world war is something where the whole of globe, each country is at war with some other country. Then it's a world war. As long as there are some countries who are peacefully coexisting without fighting with anybody, it is not a world war. You know, it's not a world war. It could be a probability a war of major, powers. But then, in true sense of it, it is not a world war. World war, by its name, means that the whole world is at war with each other. Now coming besides the classical definition of world war, the only way the third war could be defined as a world war if there is a war between, say, the USA and its allies, so-called allies, which are now not as great an ally as it has been a past century. So if the USA and its allies go and confront with China and the communist bloc, that could in some way be called as a world war. I do not see an open confrontation between US and China in a foreseeable future. We cannot talk about any far future, but in the foreseeable future, I do not see. Even if China, you know, had the audacity to invade Taiwan, I do not see a direct confrontation between US and China. US is keeping it very ambiguous now. So US only interest in Taiwan, besides being a little bit of check on China, is just the TSMC company and the chips which it provides to the world. The Europe and US will come down to its knees if those chips are not available. If there is an invasion of TSMC or Taiwan by China, in any case, those chips will not be available to them whether the US goes into a war with China or not. Because when there is a China-Taiwan war, the TSMC will be the first one to be destroyed completely, and there won't be a single wafer ever produced from them for next 20 years. You got it? So I do not see any purpose of USA being met by standing for Taiwan. You know, and it's a matter of time when the balloon goes up, and you will probably get to see through your own eyes that US would ditch Taiwan also, the way it has very coolly, nicely and professionally, with very flowery words, has ditched a whole block of Europe of 49 countries. Okay? So I guess there would be a lot of noises, and no empire ever declines or goes down the drain or degrades or downgrades without making a lot of noises. So I believe that there would be a lot of noises while the US goes down the path. But I do not see a full blown confrontation between the two blocks of the world. There would be heightened security problems. There would be by you know you know countries fighting among themselves. There are pretty good hotspots, but I do not see the countries then taking another countries along with them and turning it into a larger two-block war in the world. Now there are too many interests are in conflict with too many interests with each other, and no clear two blocks of interest are emerging in the world. So as long as there are no two clear interests aligned, vertically, splitted, and there is no chance of a world war per se.
Okay, sir. Uh, Next point was, is the US hegemony declining, and is the world now becoming a multipolar world instead of singular world?
Yeah, that's quite evident. Most of the countries are seeing it. If you carefully look at it, G7 or earlier G8, when the Russia was also part of the, that G7, it was called G8. It's only after 2014 that the Crimea was taken over by Russia, and then they made it G7 after that incident. So G7 was the only economic bloc in this world, and it used to decide the economic direction of the globe. It used to set the pace of the growth of the world. It used to set the GDP of the world. And it's not very far, 2014, when it became from G8 to G7. From that time, the G20 has come up. Why the G20 has come up? Because from G7 to 20, the another 13 countries are now gaining a lot of weight, economic weight there. So they have coolly made it G20. Okay? Besides the G7, G20, now the BRICS has come up. And the BRICS is more of a representative of the global south. BRICS as of today, as we talk, is about 60 plus percent of the humanity, more than that, and 40 plus the economic muscle of the world. So where is G7 now? G7 is too tiny in front of the BRICS. And as we step forward in the future, the BRICS is expanding at an unseen pace. With the more and more expansion of BRICS will have its own agenda, which will be at cross purpose with G7. G7 is headmastered by US. That's why US sees BRICS as a future threat to its hegemony. But that's already rolling. It cannot be taken back. BRICS has lived long enough and BRICS is getting, further steam into it. So I believe that yes, as far as the economic world is concerned, I believe that the world is completely getting divided between the global north and global south. Global north is white people, G7, aligned with US hegemony, and global south is non-white, okay, rest everybody. They have not had any say for centuries in the global affairs, okay. They have been on the sidelines for about 100 years. Their futures were decided by the global north. So the global south is now becoming assertive because the new hotspot of the world economic output is happening in global south, whereas the global north, most of them are matured economies, and being matured economies and the societal issues they have extremely decelerated growth in them. And it's a matter of time when the global south outpaces them. When the global south outpaces them, they will have their own economic agenda, they will have their own international monetary methods to sort out the thing, they'll have their own trade centers, and they will have their own aligned world trade bodies, they will have their own global payment system, they will have their own global financial settlement systems and all kind of stuff, and the global markets will move to global south. So the global south, when the markets move to the global south, there would be far larger companies in the global south than the global north. So I see the the global wealth gradually, inch by inch, migrating from global north to global south. And this would have huge dynamics for the globe. You know? And one of the dynamics of that the absolute hegemony of the US would be questioned. It is already getting questions. US is losing its credibility. US is losing its credibility in the eyes of its own people. You have a maverick president, you know, who cares about nothing about him except for himself. The society is under, huge inflation, and he uses tariff as a tool to change the globe. And with this, now things are further imputes, and accelerating further of a division between the global north and global south, and that would eventually, you know, erode the hegemony of US, because when you don't have an economic heft, you are obviously be a lightweight in the global geopolitical affairs. Money speaks. So the money is migrating. When I say the global wealth, it means accumulated money. It means accumulated assets, which are slowly migrating in the hands of whites to non-whites, Western world to the non-Western world, global north to global south. And within the global south, the South Asia per se is a bright shining star. That's how it is.
Oh, okay, sir. Great. Last point or last question for today was
Oh,
why
wonderful.
are
I'm so
we?
happy that you have only have last question.
Yeah, and then we have to take some charts today. So my point was, why are Indians facing so much of racism throughout the world? So much of hate, so much of bullshit, shit. Why is it so at the moment?
See, there are multiple reasons for this, and there are multiple facets to it. There are multiple dynamics to it. One will have to understand them with a little cool, analytical, thought about it. One and the foremost is the most of havoc in the society, where you talked about Germany cancelling its Christmas celebrations, sell Christmas markets, France doing the same, UK has already done this, many other countries are doing it. So most of these people who have never lived out of their countries and never lived out of their continent, they think anybody who is a non-white is Islamist. You know, for them, they don't even know that India for 10,000 years is a Hindu Rashtra. For them, anybody who is a Muslim and has ever said I'm an Indian, they think every Indian is a Muslim. And they look alike. They are all brown skinned. They have the same facial features. They have same kind of cultural background. So आटे में घुन भी पिसता है ठीक है तो if that is the precedence being set there they have really no time or reflex thinking to reflect upon it that okay you are from the same place same food same culture but you are different they have no patience to listen to this okay that's one reason probably the second reason which otherwise comes to mind is that you are being seen and perceived by them that you are eating away their businesses as the wealth is moving from global north to global south. Then you are eating away their wealth, and then besides that, you are eating their jobs also. Now that if their assets, financial assets, accumulated over 700 years are moving towards the global south, inch by inch, then you are eating their jobs as well. If you are eating their wealth, you are eating their jobs, you are eating and kind of setting into their societies, you are eating into their businesses, and you are trying to gradually, you know, grow your tentacles in their society, they see it as a threat to their getting uprooted. So they have a twin onslaught. On one, their society, their culture, their woman is under onslaught of Islamists. That's very clear. On the other hand, those who are non-Islamist and Indian, even if they come to know that they are not Islamic, they are Hindus, they are eating away their businesses. So it becomes a double whammy for them. And obviously, if that were to happen to you, if you invite a couple of, you know, guests to your home and then you say, okay, you have nothing in Europe, come and stay in my house, then they start slowly, first they take a corner in the sitting room and then they get into the lounge and then they get to one of the bedroom, then they also take half kitchen, then they take your laundry also and then they gradually, take over your main bedroom. At some stage, there would be a reaction to it and you could call it racism then you know so yes there are genuine reasons there are fair reasons there are unfair reasons because the competition would always be there within the humans you can't say that no Indian should ever come there and eat away their job when they don't have skilled people to do those jobs. It is they who are giving the visa to the Indians to come there and do that job. So there is a contradiction in that. But the local populace doesn't understand that what happens at the government and regime level. So these are the reactions to that. But I believe that eventually, you know, if you are not trying to change their society, change their way of living, change their ethos, change their culture, change their religion, take away their women. If you don't do all of this, I think the world will understand it slowly and manage it and live with it. But the moment Islamists do that, it further gives imputes to that racism what you're talking about.
Okay, sir. We have some questions from the people in live chat. First question was why Indian from Iron Man India, and his question is why Indian government is not doing anything against Bangladesh.
See, please try and understand this. All of us are very impulsive, very impromptu. There should be a reason for doing something against the Bangladesh. Bangladesh has not done anything against us directly for us to be able to react to it. You know, but we as common citizens have too much of emotions running, and our adrenal runs far more greater, and then we are pumped up to take an action. At a government level, or at a country level, or at a national level, you don't decide actions. What do you mean by action? You mean basically a kinetic action. A kinetic action is a war. So you think war is just a game? No, it's not a game. Once you got into, you won't be able to come back. And once you don't come back, that we as common citizens would itself will say why this government has gone and spoiled our entire economy, spoiled our entire society, and why it is not stopping it. When you stop at their terms, you would have Islamists standing at your door. So war cannot be decided based on emotions. Okay? And I do not see a great global, standing for India where it has a ruse and cause to be able to say that we will not be able to tolerate this and we will go ahead and stop this. Unless things go to a level, a boiling point, where the Bangladesh, in the direction it is going, crosses the Lakshman Rekha, and there are many things of that, then probably the India would. But I believe at this point of time, you would not be able to fight a war like this on all the directions for every single incident. No, it doesn't happen probably that way. So I hope that makes you understand to some extent that the government and nations don't decide exactly the way individuals, as common individuals, we decide based on our emotions.
Yes, sir. Karthik Tyagi 89 asks, should India ban Bangladeshi products as we did with China?
Yeah, that's fair enough. We have done that a lot. We've already stopped the power generation and power providing them from India, Jharkhand. Okay, a dedicated power plant was put for meeting their needs. We've already stopped their visas in India. We've already, identifying the illegal Bangladeshis living in India and sending them. We already cut down our trade with them. We already stopped our border, trade checkpost. We've already even stopped the Kolkata port, kind of being a trade point between Bangladesh. So there is a lot of downward movement in that. But if there are trade linkages which are there existing right from 71 till now, they cannot be finished overnight. Things have to be covered first and then gradually go down, and that's what is happening already in place. Yes, Bangladesh probably will have a food crisis if India stops providing the rice to them itself, and I believe that there is these are also being looked as strategic tools of coercing Bangladesh and making it falling into line. And yeah, I have completely agree with you. The trade should go down, but the trade is not one transaction which can be just cancelled.
Yes, sir. Sanatan Sanskritam says Namaste. Thank you, ji. Thank you, Sanatan Sanskritam ji. Next one is from Ha Ha Hohon. Globally, they have one plus point, which is large birth rates. This is related to Islam and Muslims. She's asking, or he's asking, I don't know. Globally, they have one plus point, which is large birth rates. How would any country tackle it?
So this question is to ask yourself as to it's easy to ask this question, but when it comes to kind of practicing this solution to this question, ask ourselves at what age you are. Are you married? You are. If you're already more than 18 years and you're not married, and even if you are married at some stage, what age you are married, and if you're married at this, when do you have your children, and if you when do you have your children, how many children you have. So more or less, our education system, our cultural system, and also our awareness of the societal family needs, the societal needs, the national needs, and global needs. It is settled in our mind that we should get married only once we are financially independent, and then we should not have more than two. Hum do hamare do. So unless this is changed in the minds of each one of us and we self-realize it, the government cannot really tell Muslim you would not have, you would not do what is required to make children, and it can't tell Hindus that I will not allow you to, kind of sleep away from your wife, and I would like you to have 10 children tomorrow. The government cannot step onto your personal liberties and personal choices to have children and marriages. It is for us to do. So I think to expect anything, say from the government to take any steps on this direction, it's very tough. As far as the Muslims doing it, well, they have their own ideologies, and they work on them. However good or bad they are, is not for us to comment at this point of time and here in this debate. Uh, but if others were to outdo them, then they need to produce more children, get married early, and produce more children, and to be able to sustain them, and not have, like Muslims, that they don't care if they have 12 children, out of them 2 die, and the rest 10 do puncher job. So if that's acceptable to you, even you would do that. But then that's a hard choice you need to make. And I think, yes, I partially agree with them that yes, gradually they say the Islam is the fastest growing religion. No, it's not the fastest growing religion at all. Islam is the fastest breeding religion. It is breeding people. Okay, it is producing far many greater number of people. That I agree with it. So it's a numerical number. You need to
Yes, sir.
gear up and do the more than that. I'm
And
way
just
past that age and stage. I can't, kind of chip into that anymore.
yes, sir. Also, as sir said, हम दो हमारे दो. Now it has turned to हम दो हमारा कुत्ता actually, because most of
Yeah.
the people in cities have stopped producing children. Anyways, last question, last point. I mean, last chat question. I'll say regarding racism. Even our players, for example, it is from Poonam Singh. She asked regarding racism. Even our players from, for example, in chess, etc., also get attacked like correct smell, etc. Is it hard to ignore and move on?
I'm so sorry. I didn't understand that.
The question was, our players internationally, nationally, they get a lot attacked with this racism point. And she asked, like, for example, chess players generally are called like they smell like curry and stuff. So how do we overcome this? Because it's hard to ignore, is what her comment is.
Yeah, so I think we need to look at this, see these things with a different perspective. I won't call them as pure outright racism. I would rather call them as more of, you know, basically competitive rivalries. So if somebody does a better podcast than you, so obviously it is quite obvious that you feel very competitive pressure of it, and then you are jealous about it. And then if two of you are put together, then probably you tell him that you are a Dhruv Tatti, you're not a Dhruv Rati. So when you call Dhruv Rati a Dhruv Tatti, now I won't call it racism. Two Indians won't be doing racism against each other. I think it's more of a competitive pressure. It's more of a competitive jealousy. It's more of throwing tantrums on those non-whites winning it. So racism is a very broad-based and broadside word, which probably doesn't really work and fit in well there. That's my take on it. But yes, even if you call it with some other name as competitive, negative energies or jealousy or kind of rank hate for losing, whatever you may like to give it a name. But yes, these players only have to give it back for it to settle the scores. But I would still prefer to call it not as a racism, but more of the competitive rivalries. And a winner will always, get some, bruises in any case.
Okay, sir. Iron Man India says, thank you, sir. Thank you for the answer. And yes, thank you very much for the wonderful discussion, sir. It was really fascinating today, and we cover, I guess, lot of topics that are running very hot at the moment. So, with this, I'll also like to say to the subscribers, non-subscribers, and everyone that Christmas is there. So, happy Christmas to everyone. We might even plan for 4 5 days. I won't be available. I'll be on vacation. So in that case, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. ये channel अगर चलेगा तो आपके support से ही चलेगा. We will thank sir once again for coming to us, and I hope next year then we will join. I will ask sir to join in again many times in the upcoming year. And thank you very much. Namaste.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.